Prey just came out, and oh my god, unsurprisingly, it was a total train wreck, and I am absolutely here for it. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some bright spots in there, but they were pretty predictable. The coolest part about this movie was the Predator itself. Pretty much everything else serves as background noise, coupled with probably some of the worst CGI I've ever seen. As always, let me give you a brief summary of the movie before digging in. Naru is a gatherer and healer for her tribe with aspirations of being a hunter like her brother, Tabe. However, she is pegged as being noticeably bad at hunting and is therefore never given the opportunity to prove herself. The opportunity comes when a member of their tribe is injured by a lion or a bear. It's pretty indecisive and seemingly lost. And Naru is noted by her brother Tabe, again, to be an excellent tracker and is therefore allowed to join and even lead the hunting party. He finds the injured member, heals him, and then resolves with the rest of their party to kill the lion. While her brother aims to bait the lion towards Naru and another, Naru is relentlessly insulted by this guy until the lion randomly decides to kill him. And kill him. Naru then tries to engage the lion, only managing to spear it as she falls on her head and is knocked unconscious. She wakes up to find that her brother has not only rescued her and carried her back to camp, but has also returned carrying the lion on his back, which I think is like 800 pounds, and is essentially promoted to leader. Naru is mad because she feels slighted that not only did he save her, but he stole her kill that she totally could have killed while unconscious. Naru then defiantly decides to continue hunting instead of gathering. She modifies her axe since she notices that when she misses a rabbit, it takes her too long to go retrieve the axe, which I guess I don't understand how missing the first time means modifying your axe is going to make you any more effective of a hunter if you can't. Oh, whatever. But it does. Naru succeeds in hunting at least half a dozen rabbits. Meanwhile, the predator 1v1s a wolf. Yeah, that isn't even a joke. This wolf is just hunting for food. The predator basically shoulder checks it, and instead of running away like a solo wolf might do when randomly smacked by something, it decides to square up with this invisible thing.
As the wolf moved in my direction, it was clear that it didn't know that I was there. It turned and ran as soon as it realized I was there. Running away is a wolf's typical reaction to encountering a human.
The wolf and predator both take this Mortal Kombat stance and then just lunge at each other. Nara resumes tracking, discovering dozens of skinned and killed buffalo. At some point, she almost kills herself falling into mud, but manages to escape. Meanwhile, the predator is hot on her trail. Naru eventually stumbles on a bear and decides to try and kill it by using her dog as bait. She fails miserably, but is saved by the sudden intervention of the predator, who tussles with the bear in probably one of the coolest scenes in the movie, like straight up cold cocking it with a solid right cross and instantly killing it. Naru flees and runs into the hunting party from her tribe. She tries to urge them of the greater threat, and instead they decide the only way to settle things is with a good old-fashioned fight. Naru and one of them fight, with her almost winning until the others step in to subdue her. Meanwhile, the predator is watching and decides to engage the hunters. There's a pretty decent fight scene between the hunters and the predator, but they all ultimately get straight-bodied. Naru runs into the grass to meet with another hunter, only for him to die and the predator to pursue her instead. She steps on a trap, and the predator appears to consider what has happened before backing off as a group of French pelters come into play. They have captured both Naru and Tabe. The French allow one guy to interrogate Naru in her native tongue, where he straight up exposition dumps. He says that he thinks this creature is looking for the strongest creatures to hunt and yada yada yada. Now, naturally, since this creature is looking for the strongest creatures to hunt, the French, including this guy with this knowledge, decide to tie up both Naru and Tabe to a tree in the middle of a foggy clearing to use them as bait for an ambush. They literally tie them to a tree, helpless, while knowing the creature is interested in hunting stronger creatures. Okay. Now, the predator essentially goes on a killing spree, murdering all the French pelters. This sequence is again pretty neat. There's a lot of fun action. The predator makes some mistakes, gets injured, pretty much par for the course. Naru and Tabe manage to escape and flee. Naru returns to the camp to find her dog and retrieves her weapons, which she then uses to absurd lengths of skill to completely kill a bunch of French pelters, who for some reason come at her one at a time. She harnesses this fighting power that she developed a few hours ago to hunt rabbits into a martial art style that is super effective. Okay, Naru encounters the exposition French guy at the camp minus a leg. She compels him to tell her how the firearms work or she will let him die. He tells her, she gives him a flower that apparently causes your body temperature to appear completely absent, just gone. It makes you so cold the infrared space technology can't even see you instantly, like by putting it in your mouth. The predator arrives and cannot see anyone until he steps on the French guy, who screams and is killed. Naru's dog then attempts to 1v1 the predator, and Naru does pretty much nothing as her dog, which she risked her life to save, is almost killed. Tabe steps in and actually manages to kill the predator by himself, severely wounding it, while Naru attempts to repeatedly get her firearm that she just received working. Instead of helping Tabe with her sick new martial arts techniques, she watches him fight. I've never been so in awe of how brain dead a character can be. Naru then resolves again to defeat the predator after Tabe has died. This time she is using everything in her arsenal. She finds the leader of the French pelters wounded and lures the predator to him. He is killed, and while the predator is cuddling his skull, he does not notice that Naru is standing directly behind him, where she hasn't moved from, because she ate the flower that instantly makes her invisible. She shoots him in the back of the head, which doesn't kill him, and then steals his helmet. Naru then uses pretty much everything the audience has been shown throughout the film against the predator. The mud pit, she uses how the predator jumps from tree to injure him. She uses how the predator's shields work to stop herself from getting beheaded by crawling between a rock. She jumps 50 feet from a tree and lands on the predator's back and stabs him repeatedly with her hatchet. She backflips off of a tree. She tricks the predator into cutting off his own arm. She rips off his mandible. She lures him into the mud pit and uses his mask with the tracking arrows to kill him by previously perfectly positioning that mask at a certain point in the angle that she was somehow guessed with perfect accuracy. And she doesn't even use her cool hatchet God of War thing in this fight, not even once. She then returns home with the predator's severed head and is made leader, showing the pistol she used to be the same one from Predator 2. Yep, the end scene of Predator 2 when the elder predators come through and give the gun. That's the gun that they. It's the gun she has, I guess. Apparently, there's this end scene of a bunch of predator ships coming to Earth or something, and but I still think the implication. I don't know. All right, let me start with the things I like. The Predator is pretty cool. I enjoyed the fight scene with the bear and most of the on-screen time with the Predator until the last action sequence. But seriously, the Predator versus the bear was so cool. The bear kicks his ass, starts to walk away. The Predator slowly stands up like, I ain't hear no bell, and straight boom, just punches him. I just thought that was so amusing. It was just entertaining. That's all it was. Tabe definitely should have been the main character, or more of a main character. He almost manages to best the Predator solo, and the character itself was just surprisingly nice, supportive, and reasonable. Sure, he made a mistake at one point, but who cares? Was that all I liked? Damn, okay. Well, let's start off with Naru. A completely unlikable character. One of the first things we are told about her is how amazing she is at everything, and the only reason she pursues hunting is because everyone thinks she cannot do it. From what we are shown, she can't hunt worth a damn. Her throwing an axe at a tree and chasing a deer does not really tell me she's a good hunter. In fact, the only thing that she successfully hunts is a bunch of rabbits and then the predator. Then she just out of the blue has this impeccable fighting ability and perfectly counters everything the predator has with perfect, unfathomable accuracy. You guys remember when Dutch tried to bait the predator and it didn't work and his whole plan fell apart and he had to improvise on the fly? He ended up crushing the predator with a counterweight, not an actual trap. Naru just has everything go her way with no issues whatsoever. And I really want to call her a Mary Sue just because of how ridiculous the final fight was. Up until then, it hadn't been too bad, but the final fight really sealed it in. One of the biggest advantages Naru has is her use of an herbal flower that completely and instantly hides her body temperature, and my issue with this is how she came to the conclusion to use this against the predator, or that even the predator only sees in infrared. Naru uses this herbal flower previously to heal an injured member of her tribe, and the next time she uses it is on the French exposition guy. Here is the problem. The French guy is playing dead after having eaten the flower, and he is surrounded by corpses. Naru sees this and somehow puts together that due to the flower, the predator cannot see him, which she then uses later in the final confrontation. There is no indication of how the predator sees, only that the predator sees a bunch of people dead and one of them is playing dead. This is what I mean when I say Naru has information she should not. She should have no concept of different visual spectrums, and using this flower randomly before her fight when it is used as a sedative is ridiculous. If she was severely wounded and used the flower to take the edge off and noticed the predator just walk past her, sure, but she isn't and she doesn't. Not only this, when the predator sees people with these lower body temperatures, it can still identify them. Specifically, it identifies all the French dudes on the ground as dead. So if in the final fight, when Naru is standing there next to a fire after having eaten the flower, why can't the predator identify her as being there? She comes to this conclusion by watching the French guy play dead after eating the flower. I refer to this as meta information. It is something that writers do to sort of cheat when they've backed themselves into a corner while previously writing. Sometimes people refer to this as a deus ex machina, but I prefer meta. A character spontaneously doing something they should not be capable of doing because they have not seen it or had enough information to come to that conclusion. The Predator itself, while super cool, is still a bit too advanced. I feel like if the Predator was improvising weapons on his own with each kill, it might have been a bit more interesting. He first kills a snake, then a wolf, then a bear, and mostly barehanded. But once the humans step in, the honing arrows, unbreakable spears, melting bracelets, shields specifically for deflecting bullets, and flesh-cutting nets start coming out. It's jarring. If they had just kept it as the homie, invisible with wrist blades, I feel like it could have been a lot more compelling. They are trying to push the idea that this predator is not super advanced, but it definitely seems super advanced. I don't think you can have something be invisible and not think it's super advanced. Then there's this weird consistency in the movie where everyone seems to think Naru is prey. Throughout the movie, the predator tends to categorize anything it encounters. We are first shown this when it witnesses a wolf hunting a rabbit, and it appears to catalog one as predator and the other as prey. Thus, the predator pursues the predator and leaves the prey otherwise unharmed. If you pay attention to these symbols, you can kind of see them pop up, not in the exact same format, but in the same variation. This happens at several points with a mouse and a rattlesnake, and finally with Naru and other hunters in her tribe. Unsurprisingly, the predator continually seems to categorize Naru as prey. Hell, it even categorizes her dog as more of a threat than her. Now, this might have been an interesting avenue to explore if, at some point, the predator decided to change his initial categorizing of Naru. Now, the only time Naru pops up on this device is when the predator is looking at her weapon, and it seems that he focuses on the weapon and categorizes the weapon as a threat, but Naru is allowed to run away. However, it appears to just be a device the writers are using to tell the audience that everyone, including the alien not from Earth, thinks that Naru is not a threat. In traditional sense, the predator never attacked or killed unarmed women, men, or children because there was no sport in it. This new writing seems to imply that predators just don't consider women, even armed and dangerous, threats, which just makes me think that the writers are trying to imply that the predators are super sexist or something. Think about this. The predator seemingly witnesses Naru beat the absolute piss out of another hunter that he thinks is worthy of killing, and still seems to regard her as helpless and prey. I don't know why they just didn't have a scene where the predator is looking at her and the categorizing language just changes her to a threat. That's all it would have taken, but instead it just doesn't happen. Naru just kills him because he thinks she's prey. The CGI in this film was just bad. I don't know why. The snake eating the mouse in 2 seconds, the wolf trying to lunge at the predator like it's some Mortal Kombat bullshit, the bear being the most non-bear I have ever seen. At some point, I wish they would have just excluded these scenes entirely until they were more polished. Naru killing the predator just made zero sense. For it to make sense, she would have had to have witnessed everything the predator was doing during massacring the French pelters. The whole area was foggy, and the predator was jumping around killing dudes, and she was tied to a tree. She was focused on getting free, yet somehow she must have witnessed everything the predator did and came up with a game plan to counter every single thing. Not to even mention how ridiculously specific her endgame was. The predator had to fall into the mud pit perfectly lined up with the helmet that she stole after shooting him in the back of the head. Why would the Predator even try to shoot her if he knew she had his helmet that controlled the arrow gun he is shooting? If they are used exclusively, why would he even use it if he's missing his helmet? Wouldn't the arrow just fly off to wherever his helmet is facing, regardless of whether or not Naru has it? Suddenly, the Predator is just the most brain dead hunter to ever exist. The Predator even has this comedic, huh moment. Naru could have killed the Predator earlier and saved Tabe if she had just helped him. He literally almost kills it. He is actively carrying the whole movie on his back in this moment, and instead of helping, she fumbles with a gun for a couple minutes and then just runs away and survives. Also, the gun thing just makes no sense. So Naru has this gun that the Elder Predator in Predator 2 gives Michael at the end. How the fuck did he get it? Did he kill Naru and take it back? Because that's the implication. Did the Predators come in at the end scene and just pat her on the back and say, good job, you killed our fucking junior or fucking intern Michael, you killed him, and we're gonna take this gun as payment for killing him? Like, I feel like the only redeeming quality of this movie was the Predator. I think one of the major downfalls of the Predator movie franchise is how they've moved away from humans being the spotlight, with the newer films featuring forgettable characters but increasingly cool predators. If you look at the first Predator, you have Dutch and his band of elite soldiers, pretty much all of them with the exception of this guy stole the spotlight. The Predator hunting them was never really the front and center until the final battle. The creature manages to come off as the villain successfully. The second Predator also features police officer Harrington and his team trying to track down a series of suspicious murders, but even then it isn't really the Predator pushing the plot forward, it is the human. You were always rooting for the human to succeed until Aliens vs. Predators. AVP became the first movie where you could care less about the humans and were instead focused solely on the Predators. The Predators were the heroes of the film, and the humans were annoying things that popped up every now and then to drop exposition and then get killed. AVPR continued this trend of introducing a badass predator and alien hybrid, then expecting us to care about some teenager, some army girl on leave, some guy with a dark history. It had the same problem Jason vs. Freddy had. There was no need for a plot at all because all the people really wanted to see was these two powerhouses fighting. I think AVPR finalized the nail in the coffin. Humans were taking a backseat and predators were taking the center stage. Next, Predators started the trend of what I like to call bass backwards. They try to recreate what happened in the first Predator film with a bunch of badass mercenaries and killers, but instead it just seems like an unlikable group of people stuck together. In Predators, the Predators are the focus of the film. Their badass technology and strange way of killing or trapping humans, they literally made them bigger and stronger while explaining how all the other Predators we had seen until now were inferior ones. The Predators in Predator are literally the recreation of Dutch's team, elite hunters with special skills that set them apart from one another. There is no real element of horror, and for some reason the humans manage to almost effortlessly defeat them, with the only real threat to the humans being each other, which I'm sure they were reaching for some metaphorical philosophy shit right there. Then you have The Predator, which is the atrocity written by Shane Black, wherein the Predators are actually an elite race of aliens that tries to mutate themselves to be the apex predator of everything. They also view autism as the next step in human evolution for some reason. This film also features an incredibly unlikable team of veteran soldiers that we are supposed to care about, but don't. They have a suave leader who mysteriously encounters the Predators by chance and then decides to mail this ultra secret technology to his house to kickstart the plot so his autistic son can somehow accidentally activate the technology, inciting the plot to even happen. But again, we see that the Predators are not staples of horror or even really a threat. There's just inappropriate jokes and the super predator running around like the Hulk. At the end, they even get this Iron Man type suit called Predator Killer, and it is just no. Prey, I feel like, has fallen in this similar footsteps. Instead of me really rooting for Naru or even Tabe, I'm just interested in what the Predator can do. There was not really a scary moment, it was just a movie. This is definitely a movie I could rewatch just because of how interesting the Predator was, but other than that, all the human characters, it was just like a typical 90s horror film again, you know? Nobody cares about the group of teenagers struggling to find their way in the world. Everybody just wants to know when the killer is going to show up. And that's pretty much what this movie became. I remember the first two Predators were almost exclusively for me. I really liked the Dutch's team and Michael's team of cops, investigators, or whatnot, and the sort of mystery involved. And even though you know something is hunting them, it was still kind of surprising and interesting to see. And the final battles were always really interesting. This one was just a whole lot of luck and what I would consider meta information, which is Naru possessed information that she should not have because she did not witness it and she was not told it. So I don't know how she came to these conclusions,